What's up, everyone? I hope you're doing well today. This is Raphael Garcia here for episode 41 of the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. I hope you have enjoyed your new year and holidays. I think this is our first episode of the 2020. So thank you for joining us once again. As always, let's knock out some of the quick stuff. Thank you for listening to the show. Please feel free to like and subscribe to our YouTube page. You can find us at MMA Ratings there. Check us out on Instagram and Twitter at MMA Ratings Net. You can also go to the website where we do all of our MMA content at MMAratings.net. This show, the Wrestling Podcast, will most likely be coming on Thursdays going forward. We moved the MMA podcast to Tuesdays so we can be a little bit quicker on some of our fight analysis from the weekend and some of the big news that occurs over the weekend. And we moved this wrestling podcast to Thursday because a lot of the stuff that I like to talk about occurs on Wednesday. To be honest, I haven't been keeping up 110% with Monday Night Raw and SmackDown, so then those shows are what they are, and we will be potentially doing some Sunday shows going forward after big UFC events and big wrestling pay-per-views and big news weekends like tonight. So thank you again. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and share our content across wherever social media platforms you enjoy the most. You can catch me at rgarcia_sports, where, as always, I'm talking about everything from professional wrestling to MMA to everything in between. And it's funny because a lot of people have reached out and try to talk to me about the NFL playoffs going on this year. And guess what? I don't watch the NFL. Haven't watched the NFL for probably about 2 years. So stop asking me. Next topic. Next question, as Drew Rosenhaus used to say back in the day. So today we're going to talk about three topics. I want to cover the Tessa Blanchard situation and how that played into the main event for tonight's Impact Hard to Kill. I want to talk about WWE, just some of the main storylines coming out of last week, and also talk about NXT UK Blackpool 2, which was an excellent show. That I watched it after it occurred, but it was still amazing. I got it in before the TNA show earlier today, so it was fantastic. And I also want to talk about some AEW topics as well. I wish I had did the show soon enough to come back and talk about Wrestle Kingdom, but I decided to take that out of the agenda for tonight's show. However, if you have an opportunity, go back and watch Wrestle Kingdom from January 4th and 5th. Fantastic show from start to finish. Go back and watch that content. There's a lot to really take out from that show. Naito is a double champ. Kenta's the asshole. Excuse me. Kenta's the asshole. Everybody knew he was. Great show from start to finish. Gato was a genius. And let's get him to continue booking. So for the TNA piece of the show, let's just talk about, or I'm sorry, TNA, excuse me, for the Impact piece of the show, let's talk about Tessa Blanchard. She won the Impact World Championship, defeating Sami Callihan in the main event today, also known as Solomon Crow, if you watched him back in NXT. And this is a major moment because clearly she, being the woman who has been tearing up wrestling over the last year, has now captured the organization's biggest title, and she is, she's it. This is akin, if you are not familiar with Impact, this is akin to Charlotte defeating whoever, I'm not going to say Brock Lesnar, but this is akin to Charlotte becoming the WWE champion. And it should be a major, major moment for women's wrestling, and it is. But it is occurring with a asterisk on this night. And that's because of a series of tweets that came out on Saturday, I believe Friday and Saturday, where it started with Tessa Blanchard basically making a statement that is a statement we should all get behind about women supporting each other and lifting each other up. Very clear statement that most people will be 110% behind. But what happened from there was a wide range of responses of other professional wrestlers who have worked with Tessa at some point in time, who took umbrage to the idea that she is trying to spread said positivity when she herself has exemplified the opposite. The worst part of that came out was the idea that she has used racial slurs backstage while in Japan, and even going as far as to spit on another wrestler while calling her a nigger. So she started with her first tweet, and then women such as Toasted Green, Allison Kay, Big Swole, La Rosa Negra is the woman who actually that this situation occurred to. Renee Michelle, you may remember her as Drake Maverick's wife from the WWE 24/7 storyline. So many Shayna, so many different women came out and talked about this situation to kind of corroborate the story. I mean, I'm sitting here looking now, and I see tweets from at least, let's say, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, 8 women, 9, 10 women who've come out and corroborated the story. Either they were there or they heard about it. And then, like I said, you also had the individual who it occurred with talking about the matter. So we're in a situation where this is all coming out about Tessa, and she responds by simply saying it's not true, denying the situation, not apologizing for it. Her exact tweet was, and I quote, "Not true. That's my statement, and the most attention I'll give it because of how actually ridiculous it is." And that was yesterday. Yesterday being Saturday at 7:41. So that was the situation, and it just snowballed. The reason why it continued to snowball is because everyone clearly had their hot takes on the matter, and it was pretty apparent that Impact was planning on putting her over and putting the title on her. It was clear as hell to me when they announced that Tessa was not going to do any press conferences after the match, and they did it. They announced that, but then they immediately followed up with Sami Callihan as well. So it was clear, they're putting the title on Tessa because usually only the winners do the press conference. But you have to wonder now the ramifications of this conversation, because it's not just about how fantastic of a moment this is for women's wrestling. Yes, that is a big piece of it. But there's also a piece of this conversation that needs to be held around feminism and white feminism. Feminism, excuse me. And the reason why I say that is, again, this is not my space to necessarily be a champion of per se. But when you look at some individuals who have been speaking out on Tessa's behalf, as if they know she's a great, basically talking about their interactions with her and how she's been nothing but kind to them, you have that side of it. But you also have another side that's probably more telling to me and a little bit more depressing. And that side is when media members or individuals who have power behind their voice and their platform decide to say that, we're going to wait for all the facts or wait for the truth to come out. They're not so ready to condemn even the accusation itself. They're not really ready to condemn that matter at all. And when I listen to that, it's clear that even if this is a purposeful attempt or just a unknowing attempt, but it's an opportunity where they're silencing women of color and they're silencing them in the professional wrestling space. This is something similar that you saw back when Nia Jax made her comment about WWE. I think they posted a video or an image on Instagram, and it was all white women. And Nia Jax took umbrage to that, and Peyton Royce decided it would be a good idea for her to respond to Nia Jax, almost kind of telling her, "Hey, shut up." And this is exactly what this situation is with Tessa Blanchard is again. And what's unfortunate about that is this is an opportunity to talk about why this is an important matter. If she is doing these things backstage, using her name to keep people from getting booked, people are afraid to speak out against her because they're afraid to get blackballed. She's spitting on people, calling people the N-word, et cetera, et cetera. If she's doing these things, that's seriously problematic. And you can sit and say, people people learn as they grow older, which is true. I've done stupid stuff all throughout my life. I'm dealing with some stupid shit I've done right now, but there's a difference between stupid and problematic or just out and out wrong. She's 24 years old, so there's still an opportunity for her to learn and grow and develop such a different outlook on life. But multiple women have corroborated the story. Multiple women. And if this was a storyline, or if this was an issue within another topic space, if this was a situation where people will be more quick to believe the victim's voice, the narrative, the not the narrative, but the willingness to say wait for the facts or let's listen for the truth will be a lot less. And it's unfortunate that when it's women of color speaking out or people speaking out on the behalf of women of color, when that happens, if you're more willing to wait for the facts or defend the person that is being accused, even though you have almost a double digit number of women corroborating the story, that's a little problematic. And it just does impact the situation as a whole. But I'm going to be honest, I'm not the biggest follower of Impact and their content, but seeing this story develop, I was interested in seeing if Tessa was going to win the title beforehand. When the match was announced and she got that win over Brian Cage to become a number one contender, I was like, yeah, she's going to win that belt. But this storyline or this angle, this issue definitely made me watch tonight because I wanted to see what was going to happen. And clearly she didn't say anything, but she did have a statement after the match where they didn't show it on the pay-per-view, but she had the microphone and she said some things. It was basically one of those, we've all made mistakes. One of those whitewashed type of responses that doesn't look good. The wide response to that was this is a bad look for the way to her for her excuse me. The wide response was this is a very bad look in how she commented on this matter. Is almost better off for her not to have said anything at all. But of course, this is a major moment. She has some family members in the ring and she dropped the ball again there. There hasn't been any admission of guilt. There hasn't been any apology. So yeah, this is really problematic, and it'll be interesting to see the way people cover this matter in the next week or the next weeks to come. But what's also important is that this is an opportunity for major media outlets to have women of color talk about this matter because this is not something that just white men should be talking about. This is not something that men should be talking about as experts in the room. This is a situation where, at least the angle of the white feminism versus the feminism aspect of this conversation, this is a space where women of color need to be elevated to speak about this controversy. I think it is huge, and I think there's a lot to talk about when it comes within professional wrestling. Okay, so sorry about that. I'm drinking some tea as well to make sure I don't get sick. I'm hoping I'm not getting sick, but that's neither here nor there. Let's move on to topic number two, where I wanted to touch on some WWE news bits. And the first one is Brock Lesnar. He is in the Royal Rumble. This was announced last week at Monday Night Raw. He will be entering at number one as a WWE champion. The title is not on the line. This is, it's an interesting twist to me. It's much better than him having a random match against someone. It's much more intriguing to me. I wonder how they're going to make this work. Excuse me. I wonder how they're going to make this work, but at the same time, what I'm interested in most is who eliminates him. I don't think Lesnar's going to win. I don't think he even survives to the last four, excuse me. I don't even think he makes it to that point. I think he gets eliminated earlier. I wrote a piece for for Daily DDT about who should eliminate him, and I gave 5 names. My names were Drew McIntyre, Keith Lee, Matt Riddle, and Kofi Kingston and or Big E. And those are the 2 that kind of intrigue me the most. I wanted to say, you have Kofi going after him, and then he gets eliminated, and then Big E kind of gets revenge for him. The Matt Riddle storyline is there because he's been talking junk about Brock Lesnar for a long time. Keith Lee's been getting a major push, as is Drew McIntyre. And I think, man, Drew needs that title. He needs that belt put around him at one point in time. It's amazing that they still haven't put the belt on him at some point in 2019, but I think that's going to change this year, and this is a way to get to that matter. But I am interested in seeing Brock Lesnar in the Royal Rumble. This is a wrinkle that I was not expecting, and it makes the card a little bit more interesting to me. So that was the first thing I wanted to talk about from WWE angle, and I also want to talk about the in NXT. The thing that jumped off the page to me was we talk a lot about the women's division being stacked, which it is stacked from top to bottom. Everybody loves it. It's I mean it's sick. NXT women's division is the best division in the industry. Yet there is some rumblings that one Io Shirai may be unhappy. Now, I can understand why. She is in a position where she may never be elevated to be that number one name in NXT. I thought she was almost there, but then Rhea Ripley just took off. I was surprised that they never put the title on her when I think she had three cracks at Shayna Baszler and lost all three. And then she went to this heel turn. And I mean, every time she's in the ring, she does fantastic work. So we know she could be someone who could put on great matches. Of course, you can say that her English isn't great, but that's whatever because you see Asuka and Kairi Sane tearing it up on the main roster as two of the biggest heels in the women's division. So her language barrier shouldn't hinder her too much, especially not in NXT where she's over as hell. But if she's unhappy, man, I hope she does not leave. She's just too much. I'm just too much of a fan of Io. I hope she stays where she is and we continue seeing some great matches out of her. The Dusty Classic started last week, and the Dusty Classic just doesn't do it for me. I'm sorry. It none of the iterations have to this point. This is the third one. We know we're going to get some great tag team matches, but it just doesn't get me excited. And because a lot of these teams, we know they're not going to stay together. But let me say, when Alex Shelley was announced as Kushida's partner, I lost my shit. Alex Shelley, I'm a fan of his from the early TNA days. They actually did a match together, I think over the weekend, and there isn't any word on whether or not he is signed full time to NXT. But as a Motor City Machine Guns with Chris Sabin, they were awesome back then. So even now, I am hoping that we get to see some great matches from Alex Shelley and Kushida. I think that they're going to win this week and maybe lose next week or something like that because they have to face Undisputed Era, and that right there is something that if you are home on Wednesday of next week, you got to catch that match because there's no way you want to miss that the time splitters versus the Undisputed Era. So that is probably the biggest thing I'm looking forward to with the C Classic, but the rest of it just doesn't do anything for me. I wrote a piece about this as well. And imagine if they would have taken the Dusty Classic and built it around the women's tag team division with a shot at the Kabuki Warriors on the line in the tournament. I think that would have done much better, been much more important, and it would have had much stronger ramifications because right now the women's tag team titles don't carry any weight. Even now, Asuka is in a match with Becky Lynch at the Royal Rumble, which means that the titles won't be defended. So this could have given them something. This could have given that division something to do to move along, to be built up, to give the Kabuki Warriors something to do after that match because it's pretty clear that Becky's going to win and they're not putting that title on Asuka. But that was a dropped opportunity, and now we're getting more of the same with the Dusty Classic. And I won't lie, it just doesn't get me super excited, except for watching the Time Splitters and Undisputed Era tear it up, which I hope they will in the next few weeks. And that brings me to talk about the first pay-per-view that was on. It was on earlier this morning, I think. NXT UK Blackpool 2. Amazing, amazing wrestling. Now I will say this. I do not watch NXT UK too often. The reason being is because A, it comes on at an odd time. I don't watch it on demand either. And a big part of that is because to me, when I look at this roster, everybody looks the same. Very few people of color. There isn't any diversity of makeup within the group. And this is even more apparent with today's pay-per-view. You look at the crowd all looks the same. There's no one there that looks like me, and that stands out to me. That's important to me. Do I support all of the people who on the WWE roster are people of color just because of people of color? No, not at all. Like, for example, I wasn't a Leo Rush fan for a very long time. I was kind of on Keith Lee as well when he first came in. But seeing people who look like me helps me invest in the content. And NXT UK doesn't have that. Everyone looks the same. White male, beard, scruffy hair. The women's division, they do look different. Piper I mean, she looks totally different than 100% of the women's roster. She doesn't look like anybody out there. She can go with all of them. So I do like that. Toni Storm is a star. She radiates that. I showed my brother a picture of her and some of her clips wrestling over the weekend after her appearance on NXT last week, and he was like, "Who the hell is that?" So yeah, she's definitely a star. And Kylie Ray, she can go with anyone from bell to bell. I wasn't too familiar with her before the not Elimination Chamber, excuse me, the War Games match a couple months, was that last month? Whatever that was. I wasn't too familiar with her before that match, but she's shown me that she can go from bell to bell. I think Warren Hayes, or maybe I think it was Warren Hayes, kind of described her as the female Sabu, and she can go. I don't know if you saw that bump she took where her leg hit the top of the barricade, but it looked like, I'm like, oh, that looked like that hurt. But she just popped right back up and did her damn thing. Another bullet point from the show today was Trent Seven. He should be allowed to start any NXT event regardless of if he is a major player on the card or not. He gets me hyped. His music hits. He just delivers every time. Again, he's another one of those guys who doesn't look like the WWE archetype of a big time wrestler, but he delivers from bell to bell every time he's out there. And I love watching him perform. I love watching him with him and Tyler Bate were the tag team champions, going back and forth with the Undisputed Era. I love him as a singles wrestler. I've gotten behind him, and every time he comes out there, he definitely gets me invested into his matches, and I love that guy. But before I even go into the Jordan Devlin versus Tyler Bate match, let me talk about the main event where Walter kept his title, the NXT UK Championship. Not a big Walter fan, not a big fan of Imperium. This is a decent match. Wasn't the best match on the card. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But it was the type of match that was hard hitting, had all of the Walter tropes that you'd expect, chops, suplexes, had that big splash off the top rope. It was what it was. Coffee looked better. I think, who was it? Maybe it was Alex Pawlowski or Glenn Rubenstein, one of the two guys, the weekly podcast I listen to. They describe Joe Coffey almost like a Triple H-esque type of character and personality, and I can see that because he looked like a performer in the ring. He looked good from start to finish. He looked much better than he did the last time I watched an NXT Takeover event. So, okay, I'm all right with that. But what happens after the match? Walter wins, and Imperium is there. All four men are in the ring, and Undisputed Era attacks, lays them out. The crowd is going crazy for it. This leads into the Worlds Collide event. I don't know when that is. Let me see. Let me see when that is. NXT Worlds Collide. Let's see. So this event is on the 25th, which is the Saturday before my birthday. Great, fantastic. And the matches are so far Imperium versus the Undisputed Era, Rhea Ripley versus Toni Storm, and Finn Balor versus Elijah. I don't know how you say that name, but Dragunov, that's his last name. So yeah, I mean, this should be a pretty decent event to kind of tear it up, but there'll be more matches announced. But yeah, Worlds Collide, I'm in, and this was an angle to get this card over. They have a couple weeks until the event, so let's see if this leads to something on NXT weekly television on Wednesday, especially because they've been falling behind AEW. I think this year the numbers were, or this week the numbers were like 947 to 721, something like that. But while there's strong ratings for both shows, there's still that 200 plus K gap between the two platforms. And while NXT's been able to close it and win in some cases, or one case, they've gone back to what was more par for the course when the two shows first got off the ground. So let's see what happens next. But this was that was a major moment from NXT UK Blackpool 2. But the thing, man, Jordan Devlin versus Tyler Bate. So this is the second time that Tyler Bate starts off a year with a insanely hot match. I think the first one was in 2018 when Pete Dunne took the title off of him. But if I was looking to introduce someone to professional wrestling and kind of get them excited about it, and I could only pick a match from a recent time, or I could sit down and make them watch a recent match, this is it. We can't forget about this match when the 2020 Match of the Year candidate conversation comes up, because this match was an absolute masterpiece. When I saw, so I ended up watching NXT UK, Blackpool 2, whatever. I ended up watching it after the show was already over. It had been over for a couple of hours. I knew that Undisputed Era was going to attack Imperium. I knew Kylie Ray had won. I didn't know too much about the rest of the card, but this match I actually had no idea going into for some odd reason. I saw some people tweeting about how great it was, but it's a title bait match. It was going to be fantastic to begin with. But I I put my phone down, closed my laptop, just watched this match from start to finish, and he just continues to deliver. He continues to find a way to be a superstar in there. And even though he's a smaller guy, he comes off as a big, 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 big talent. I can only compare him to Daniel Bryan when he had the Yes Movement going on behind him, growing behind him. Tyler Bate is that guy right now. I don't expect to see him in WrestleMania. I don't expect to see him on the main roster anytime soon. He might make a Royal Rumble appearance in a couple of weeks, but this dude delivers from start to finish. Everything, I love everything about him. His appearance, dudes are jacked. His legs look like tree trunks. His moveset, I love the fact that they went from technical grappling. They had some high flying in there. They had some brawling. They went back and they mixed. They went back and forth between the three. Their strikes look good. Jordan Devlin, do not call him just a Finn Balor knockoff, for lack of a better term. Yes, he was trained by Finn back in the day, but he is coming into his own as well too. I like how he was talking about there can only be one ace between him and Tyler Bate. There can only be one ace of NXT UK, but if this isn't a one, this is a one in a 1A situation here, because these two guys can go, and I want to see more of them. Period. I just want to see more of what these two guys can do, because I think that this match, I already liked Devlin and I already liked Bate before heading into this match, but I didn't know that this was a storyline going on because I don't follow NXT UK. But this right here makes me want to see both of these guys because they just tore it up. Again, go back, watch this match, watch it from start to finish. Don't have no distractions. Tie the kid up, put him in a closet, tell your girlfriend, your wife to go in the other room, leave you alone, go sit in the bathroom for half an hour and just watch it on the toilet, whatever. This match was amazing. The crowd was amazing. Everything about this show, or everything about this match, was fantastic, and we cannot forget about it once it comes to the 2020 Match of the Year conversation, because this right here is going to be my vote. I almost don't care what happens for the rest of the year. That takes me to the last topic I want to talk about today, whereas AEW Dynamite, whatever you want to call it. This show, the last 2 weeks have gotten close to 1 million. I think this past one was it was 940, 927. The other one may have been 940, 927, something like that. But they're getting back to that 900 mark, which is fantastic for them. The shows have been, okay. I caught last Wednesday's. Was the last Wednesday I was able to catch from start to finish, or the Wednesday before? It might have been the Wednesday before. I caught from start to finish because of the holiday. Jon Moxley versus Chris Jericho. Give me this. Give me all of it. This is gonna be fire. These are two of the guys that I love within AEW. I can't stand the rest of the inner circle though. I like LAX, but Sammy Guevara, and don't get me started about Jack Swagger, Jake Hager, whatever the hell his name is. As a group, I'm not a big fan of them, but Jericho, I'll take him all day, every day. I'm looking forward to what him and Moxley do in their match. I wonder if they're ready to take that title off of Jericho and put it on Moxley. This makes me wonder who's going to be their first champion. Moxley is still the New Japan US champion. So I wonder if he's going to drop that belt to Suzuki. I wouldn't be surprised about that, but I don't know if he's going to get the AEW title anytime soon. But that has me intrigued. That has me really dialed in to this match, this developing storyline. One storyline that I'm kind of not really sure about is this Adam Page drinking gimmick. I don't know. I don't know so far. Like the lower thirds have been hilarious whenever his name pops up, but I'm not sure. This is one of those things where in professional wrestling where I wonder if writers can treat a story with the right type of sensitivity, because we've seen so many times in the past where organizations where they can't manage to treat situations with the sensitivity needed to really give it credence. So when we see situations like this, we got to ask, okay, how is this storyline really going to kind of play, and what's really going to happen? That's really worth the conversation, and you just got to kind of stop and say, okay, how is this really going to play out? So yeah, not really sure. It is what it is. We're going to kind of ride with it for now, but I'm going to watch the best that I can, best of my ability right now, and let's see. Let's continue moving on. What else did I want to talk about when it came to AEW? Should I talk about Riho? They had a situation in the women's title match where the match was the. I'm not gonna say the match wasn't that good. Just the Riho situation itself just didn't kind of play out well with Chris Statlander because it had all of that other stuff come into play, and it left people with a nasty taste in their mouth when they had Luther, whoever the hell that is, King of the Deathmatch Luther, pop up and do his thing. But it just didn't seem like the type of match everybody was expecting. Everyone was looking forward to that women's title bout, and they thought that they were going to take the title off of Riho and put it on Statlander, which I think that they still will at some point in time. But it just prolongs that angle and it allows them to do it at like a pay-per-view or something like that. But I do think that Statlander will be the champion sooner rather than later. But I think there is still a need to have a conversation around the narrative about Riho where people don't like her per se, where they either are upset with her size and she's being booked as a champion, or I personally like. I think that the anger around her, part of it, it's just not. It just doesn't sit well with me. Borderline misogynistic, borderline racist a little bit that she's a Japanese star. That yes, she still goes back and performs with the other organizations in Stardom, I believe. But no, like, and people are seem upset about that. It's yeah, they have Britt Baker playing that up in character, but that speaks to something larger to me. And I think that I have no problem with Rio. I think she's done well as a champion so far. Yeah, she does. Again, the language barrier doesn't translate for some fans, some people. But I do think that there's a larger conversation that needs to be talked about when we are discussing this Riho title reign and the way a lot of people are so upset about it. The last story, the last news piece, actually comes out of Impact and Hard to Kill, but it's rumored that, according to SoCal Uncensored, the news site that Brian Cage has signed with AEW. Now, if you look at Melissa Santos, her Twitter account, she's Brian Cage's wife, she's basically saying that that's not true and it has not been confirmed. So, we'll see what happens about this in the next coming days, coming weeks, but I think that would be a good pickup for AEW if they do sign him. I'm surprised that WWE didn't throw didn't back the Brinks truck up for him, but I'm sure they probably did. However, I am, I'm moderately interested in Brian Cage. I think he's a big guy. He comes off as a great character within the ring. His moveset, it is what it is. Let's see how AEW uses him. But I think that that'll be a pretty interesting jump if he does make that move. So again, thank you for taking the time to listen to us today. This is episode 41 of the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. As I said, we're moving the show to Thursdays. You'll be able to find us on our YouTube channel and check out us at MMA Ratings Net on Instagram and Twitter, MMAratings.net for our website, and catch us on the MMA Ratings YouTube channel. My name is Raphael Garcia. You can catch me at rgarcia_sports. But as always, stay tuned to all of those outlets to stay up to date with some changes that we're making. I am still launching that interview series, trying to get the first one in the can this month. I'm having some scheduling conflicts, but we're going to get it done. I do think that there's a space for me when it comes to interviewing talent and personalities within professional wrestling and mixed martial arts and combat sports as a whole. So we're going to make that happen this year. But all in all, thank you for everyone who supported me up to this point in time. I appreciate all of that, and I look forward to having another strong year and building some content and building my base in the combat sports and entertainment space. So again, this is Rafael Garcia here with episode 41 of the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.